Hello everyone, this is ECAbrams, and in this week's After Effects tutorial, we're going to be creating layered 3D text using the RayTraced 3D feature of Adobe After Effects. Now, I think this has been a feature for a while. I'm using Adobe CC to create this, and at the end of this, you'll have different ways to make use of the RayTraced 3D and to export it. And as you can see by the examples we're looking at, the different ways you can render this thing are creating different quality settings. So I don't know which one will work for you, but hopefully we can figure out how to get to all of these at the end. So let's get into After Effects and get into it. So here in After Effects, we're looking at a comp that I've created before, and this comp has things like motion blur, it has camera depth of field blur, and it has several layers of text that are 3D and extruded. Why do I have several of these? Well, because I need a new one for each color and depth of thing that I'm going to extrude off of this. So let me go back to the beginning by creating a new comp. And I'm going to go with the HD TV 1080 24 frames a second preset, and I'm going to click on the Advanced tab here. And this is where you can choose Classic 3D or RayTraced 3D. You might not have the RayTraced 3D option, in which case, you know, you can stop this tutorial right now because you won't be able to go any further. And another thing that I'm sure everyone's going to point out is you can accomplish a lot of this using what's it called? Element by Video Copilot. So if you are an Element person and you want to go get that from Video Copilot, go nuts. This is for folks who either don't have the money, don't enjoy pirating, or want to get a deeper understanding of what this RayTraced 3D nonsense is all about anyway. So we select RayTraced 3D, then we go into the options. Now, this is where you choose the ray tracing quality, which is how quality this thing is, 1 being the worst or draft settings. So I'm going to set it to 1, and we're going to work in those settings for now. And also in here, I forgot to mention anti-aliasing filters, either none, box, tent, or cube. And this is the type of algorithm it's going to use to basically figure out, you know, where lines should be, etc., etc. So anyway, this dialog box basically explains a lot of things to you, and it gives you a pro tip. Set the quality to the lowest value that produces acceptable results. Now, acceptable is really a subjective thing, so whatever is acceptable to you. Right now, we're going to work with quality 1. Doesn't bog down your machine, and you know, just for those of you working on maybe the bare minimum of hardware requirements, this might mess you up. So anyway, here we go, and we're going to get into it. The rest of these things, you know, don't worry about too many of these. These are all defaults for me, so I'm just going to go okay. It's going to give you an alert. Alert, you are putting on the RayTraced 3D. It's going to enable these things. These things are not going to be rendered. These. All right, so just remember, you can now do these. You can no longer do these. So this comes up once per session or whatever. I just left it on so that you would get the warning and not get freaked out if this is your first time seeing it. Okay, so right now I'm looking at a transparency grid. You can toggle that on and off here. So if yours looks like this, whoa, don't worry about it. You can make yours look like that. Let's leave it like this. So in setting up a 3D scene, I want a new light. And I want a point light. It's going to be intensity 50%. It's going to have a smooth fall off, a big radius, big fall off distance, and I'm good with that. Okay? Thank you for the warning. It's warning me you don't have anything else 3D in your scene, dummy. So I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to duplicate it. Control or Command D, and I'm going to move another one down here. Right on. Grab those. Let's look at their positions. All right, well, I'm fine with those positions. I'm going to make a new camera, just in case you want to move a camera around, and I want to have depth of field going on. So I'm going to enable depth of field on here. Okay, good. And so we've got lights, camera, and time for some action. I'm going to make a new text layer. And on this text layer, I'm going to type out or whatever. No one really cares what's on this text layer. So, some things about RayTraced 3D. Right away, you can just make this 3D, and then automatically the lights are affecting it. Cool. I'm going to grab these lights and I'm going to move them back so towards the camera a bit. And you can see already we are suffering from intense quality loss, but that's because we're on draft settings. Don't worry too much about that right now. And now if we go in here, we can go into the geometry options. That's new. And we can give this an extrusion depth, so we can extrude it. You can have a look. It's extruding. Let's look at this. Look at it go. So you can extrude this as far back as you like, and you may also bevel it. So if you want to bevel it, it's going to, you know, start adding stuff. So you can have angular bevel, you know, that's the simplest. And look at how it adds it on, right? So it's adding this to the outside of the shape, right? So it's expanding by 10 pixels and it's cutting down 10 pixels. So just remember, when you put this on, your text or your whatever is going to get fatter. But what if we want to layer this on? What if we want to make one of these and we want to have it get, you know, finer and finer? We want to have like steps. Well, you'd think you'd need to sort of make these bigger, and the easiest way to make them bigger, expanding them, is by using this stroke, right? And as you can see, the bounding box is getting bigger, but nothing is changing about, you know, what we're actually seeing. And that kind of rots, because it's going to really take away our ability to use this in the same way we would have traditionally used this if we didn't have the RayTraced 3D. If you're not familiar with that, then check out my tutorial on the old way of getting extruded 3D letters, which sort of is for people who don't have RayTraced 3D and they don't want to go get Element, or, you know, whoever those people are. I don't know. Maybe you're still on CS4. It happens. It's expensive to upgrade, I understand, but, you know, this is for the wave of the future. So this isn't working for me. This is a real hang-up, and I thought, man, I am screwed to do the rest of this tutorial, but check this out. I'm going to click on here. I'm going to create shapes from this text. And if you're familiar with how this works, basically it's going to trace over the vector lines that defined these letters, and it's going to create something new for us, which is going to be a shape layer. And inside there we have the contents, and we have a whole bunch of stuff in here. And it's going to have a fill and stroke on this that is going to be exactly like the text. So as you can see, the bevel and the extrusion is applied to the stroke of shape layers, but not text layers. So hopefully that's a little oversight that they're going to fix down the road. But, you know, in the meantime, let's try to make use of what we got. I have put a stroke of 10 on here, and the fill and stroke, they're both white. And so this has a bevel, and you can look that up by hitting AA, and we'll bring up the geometry and material options. And so the bevel depth is 10, and the stroke is 10, and I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to duplicate it, Control D, so creating a new one of those, and I'm going to pull that one forward a bit. I'll call it the position and see just how far forward I pulled it. And let's go -10 maybe. And I'm going to need to orbit the camera around a little bit to get a good look at what I'm doing. Or I can do things like look at custom view 1, you know, so then we can look at this nice orthographic projection. Projection? Family circus over here. Anyway, so you can pull this forward and backward as much as you'd like. And now we can go in and do something like take that stroke down to 0. And you can see that now this is going to create a little step for us right there. So I'm just going to put this in, where was I at before? I don't remember, -10, something like that. Cool, so that's working for me. Now I'm going to hit AA, and I'm going to take its bevel depth down to 5, something like that. Okay, so some things to notice about what is happening. Even though we have moved this thing ahead, a whooping -10, you see it's not even out past the front of this shape. That's because the expansion of this shape, when you start to put that bevel on it, is happening in 3 dimensions. So just, you know, keep that in mind, I suppose. Anyway, so to create this staggered step, we are pushing this ahead, and so that it sticks out a little bit like so, and it's not as beveled, doesn't have a stroke on it, so it's creating a nice little step. So let's look back at camera 1. All right, that's cool. I'm comfortable with what I'm seeing. Let's duplicate this again. Neat, well duplicated, and it has the bevel depth of 0, so no beveling on this one. And call up its position, which I'm doing just by hitting the P key, and then I'm going to push it ahead to, I don't know, -30 or something. You know, that's pretty neat. So we have these steps now. Now let's take those two top layers and let's parent them to the bottom here. This means when we start, you know, moving this, changing its position, changing its rotation, the other ones are stuck to it. And I'm going to call up here the position, scale, and orientation by hitting P and then Shift S and then Shift R to bring up, you know, everything about this. But I would also like to bring up its anchor point. So Shift A to bring that up. And I want to change the anchor point to be more in the center. So let me just go back to Custom View 1. And you'll see when I start messing around with this that if I start moving the anchor point, I can move it to be more in the center of this mass, which is what I want. In fact, you can go to something like the left or the right. So let's go to look at it from the back. You can look at it from the left. And yeah, so I'm going to keep moving that anchor point till it's, you know, kind of stuck center mass of this thing. And move it up so it's stuck in the center. Cool, so I'm happy with where that's at. Let's go back to the active camera. And we have an anchor point now that is stuck in the middle. And position-wise, let's put it at 960 by 540 and 0. Okay, so far we've got this thing, and good for us. Let's keyframe its position and orientation. Move ahead about 20 frames, set keyframes there. And let's set its beginning state here to be, I don't know, we can like spin it this way, or spin it this way, or spin it that way, or, you know, who really cares? But then we can push its position way back in space and time, and then it will fly up and hit us in the face. I'm going to easy ease this, okay, and we can go in here and maybe pull on those handles, ease it a little bit more, like that. Or, you know, however you want to make this motion. I don't really care. The motion is not essential to this tutorial, I don't think. What might be essential is giving this some decent coloring. So let's go ahead and make this largest base layer here something dark. Let's go with 20 perhaps. Cool. And just for consistency, just go ahead and make the fill and the stroke exactly the same. And then let's have this layer be brighter, but not like amazingly brighter. Let's just go, you know, something like that. That's pretty good. And then I guess the topmost layer, what to do about it? This would be pink or something, I guess, or whatever. I mean, make it whatever color you like things to be. I went with pink because that's funny. Cool. So when it's rotating around, you can see clearly all of the layers as it's coming up, and all of the lighting interacting with those layers, which is great. For consistency, I like to put all of the things at the bottom, all of the lights and cameras at the top. And now I think we're ready to move on with some stuff. So right now we have ray trace quality is at 1, which is as low as it gets. But it doesn't look terrible when it's in motion, right? Not too terrible? I don't know. One of the things to notice is, even though we have depth of field on, we're not noticing any depth of field sort of blurriness going on. What's the deal with that? Well, I'll tell you. This will be governing that. So if I go into the options and I start putting this up to like 3, okay, you see how weird it gets? This is what it's doing to blur things out. So blurry, blurry, and less blurry. See, but it really looks like grains of sand, which I do not enjoy. I'm not digging that look. So I don't know. Some things you can do. Let's say you want to leave this on 1 because you like the crisp edges that provides, but you still really want to get this thing blurry, so it starts blurry and then it ends less blurry, well, just put down an adjustment layer, for example, and motion blur is going to be governed by the same thing. So let's have a forced motion blur, CC forced motion blur, and put that on the old adjustment layer. So you can put its samples up. I like 16 samples. That's a good amount of samples. So it's going to have that motion blur forced upon it. So, you know, we've got motion blur, cool. And if we want this thing to have that sort of blurriness as it comes in, let's just find those keyframes here, and let's add, I don't know, something like just a fast blur, right? So we put fast blur on here. We're going to be keyframing the blurriness. At this point, it's at 0 blurriness. And at this point, maybe it should be like a high number of blurriness. I don't know, it seems too high. 25 blurriness? I don't know. So then it gets less blurry as it gets closer. And yay, now it's right here. But I mean, that is not, it's not ideal. I mean, if you're having a large environment where you're going to be maybe moving the camera around a lot of things or stuff, and things are going to happen, and, you know, you want it to be the true camera motion blur. You want it to be the true camera depth of field. So forget about this adjustment layer thing. Your options are tragically limited to going in here, going into the options, and let's get cranking. So I'll show you the difference between a 1 and a 20, for example. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to accelerate this process, but it does take a while to grind through, even though I'm on a pretty dope-ass computer. You know, I'm not going to lie. You know, it's kind of like people who have really fancy cars. I'm overcompensating for a lot with my computer speed. So anyway, here we are. This is at quality 20, right? So you can see this actually looks pretty legit. This looks good. It doesn't look like it's covered in sand like it did before when it was at 3, right? That sucked. But still, let's go back, way back here when things are, you know, not as good, perhaps. This is back when things are far away from the camera, and, you know, let's see what it looks like. Zoom in on here. Not as sandy at all. Ooh, how about right now? It starts off looking pretty junky. We've got more detail coming in. Grind, 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 grind. Doopa-doopa-doo. But you can still pick up some of the sandiness that's happening in there. So really, you can see the huge trade-off that I'm making. You know, I'm accelerating it for this tutorial, but this is taking a good 15 to 10 seconds to resolve each of these frames, which, you know, it might not seem like a lot of time to you, but I could go do stuff with that time. But the point is that it is resource intensive to do these things. If you want to save on resources, try the adjustment layer thing and fake it out. But when you're working with this thing, always, 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 always have this at 1. Because that, I mean, it sucks to try to, you know, move things around and have no idea where they are because you have to wait, you know, 15 minutes. And keep in mind, I know a lot of people want to extrude text. Just remember, you're going to have to convert into shapes if you want to make use of its stroke. So, I mean, that bites, but, you know, what are you going to do, right? Kind of SOL on this kind of thing. It's just, you know, until they figure it out, until they get that updated. And, you know, you don't have to use this kind of bevel. You can use better bevels. You can use the concave bevel. You can use the convex bevel, whatever. Enjoy those. But hopefully this gives you some ideas about how to work effectively with the RayTraced 3D extrude. And you can use this extrusion thing on all sorts of stuff. I mean, you can use it on any shape layer, which means you can use it on any vector art. You know, the sky's the limit as long as you can make the geometry out of something that's extruded and beveled. But, I mean, what else do you need? Anyway, this has been Evan Abrams teaching you a thing or two about ray-traced 3D text and getting this sort of a layered look using the stroke, converting the text into these shape layers. If you enjoy learning about visual effects and After Effects and all this crap, then you should subscribe to this channel. It is a rad channel. Well, at least I think so, but I mean, I make it, so I'm kind of biased. Anyway, if you want to ask questions about this particular tutorial or you had trouble with it, I would recommend you ask them in the comments. That way I know kind of what you're asking about. And if you have questions about After Effects in general, hit me up on the Facebook or on the Google Plus page, or I'm on Twitter at ECAbrams on Twitter. Check that out. And that's about it. Come on over to evanabrams.com. Maybe download some cool stuff. If you want to download the project file for this, it's going to be in Adobe CC. Just because I didn't want to back convert it, and it might fry your computer because some of them have some pretty heavy settings on them. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the support that everyone's given this channel. You are all awesome. And yeah, if you subscribe to this channel, then I'll see you around the internet. Thanks again, and have a nice day.